This podcast is brought to you with limited interruption by Rudy Luther Toyota. Whether looking for an exciting brand new Toyota, a certified pre-owned vehicle, or getting quality routine maintenance and service for your vehicle, Rudy Luther Toyota is the place to go. Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley. Broadcasting live on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk. It is the Matt McNeil Show for your Friday. A lot to get to today. A little bit later on this hour, Taiyon J. Coleman, Dr. Taiyon J. Coleman is going to join us, Traveling Without Moving, Essays from a Black Woman Trying to Survive in America. We're going to be chatting with the doctor coming up here in just a little bit. But right now, Cliff Schecter is kind enough to join us. Cliff's Edge is the YouTube channel. If you are not there, you are wrong. And some good news, if you like content, you like Cliff, which we all love Cliff, you guys now have a membership program on the YouTube page, correct?
We do. We have the bigger subscribers one, which we're really close to 50,000, which I'm pretty excited about. And for the memberships one, it's going to be, some of the usual. You get some swaggy, some bloopers of me doing stupid stuff, which of course never happens behind the scenes. And then I've got a couple of celebrity interviews coming up, some stories. Oh, when you worked in D.C. and did the stuff as long as I do, I've got stories about getting into screaming matches with Kellyanne Conway in the green room. And a cool one was my little sort of time, about 5 minutes being like a Beatle, was when I was in London and I was with Mark Hamill, which some of that.
Yes, I do.
And we were in Piccadilly, I think we were in Piccadilly Circus. We were in that sort of area, and a few people knew who he was because Mark had been doing a lot of voiceover stuff, The Joker, which he won awards for, but hadn't been as big a star for a while. And then he came back and he appeared in the Star Wars movie, and that's why I went to visit him there. He was kind enough to invite my family because he was filming. People noticed him and started chasing us, and it was like out of a scene of like that Beatles, was it which Beatles video or whatever. His wife
Hard Day's
gets
Night. Wasn't it Hard Day's Night? Wasn't it that one?
That's it.
Yep.
Yeah, his wife gets like her bag knocked out of her hands. I had to pick it, Mary Lou. I had to pick it up for her. It's me and him and her and a few other folks running, and some bouncers let us in a club, and then we went on some Spinal Tap like journey up and down stairways, getting lost in the back of places to try to escape basically a crowd that was chasing after us. Not because of me, because of Mark. But, I feel like I've got a lot of interesting, especially I've done work with certain celebrities or whatever. So I've got celebrity interviews set up and stuff, and I've got a lot of that kind of stuff. So that's it. And there's different levels. People can pay anything from the $2 level to just join chats in there to like up to, there's a $25 level where you get everything you could ever desire. That's legal, of course. So...
Well,
legal and more tasteful than the RNC convention are the two things they have to be.
Well,
I gave you your segue.
We had a mutual friend yesterday. Bill Corbett was on with us yesterday to talk about the Riff Tracks Live they're going to be doing. And so you will get the Cliff Schecter that me and Bill know, which really this is the nitty gritty, the dirty Cliff Schecter. You'll find it all out with the membership. Go to the YouTube page.
Is it like a dirty Sanchez?
Well,
I'm not supposed to say that, am I? Actually, I can give you the one of the best celebrity experiences when I was in Minneapolis for the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour. I got to go out to breakfast with the famous Matt McNeil and Bill Corbett. Again, who gets to do that?
Well,
I do,
Dine and Dash, thanks for picking up the tab on that one. I appreciate that.
Did I?
No.
Or was it Corbett? No. I think we all just left and didn't pay. No, I'm kidding. We don't do that kind of stuff. We're not Donald Trump Jr.
No. Cliff's Edge on YouTube. Go there, find the memberships button, click on that, become a member. You'll get great content and stuff. But you kind of alluded to this. Can I just say, you had a great post that you put out there on social media that the newspapers of this country seem to have watched a completely different speech than actually what happened, because I saw a speech where Trump just, after 17 minutes, just went into being Trump. This angry, bitter, narcissistic, self-centered, arrogant jackassian of the epic level, which we've always seen.
They did not use enough sedation on him like they did during the debate, where they obviously injected him with enough, or they hit his Adderall or whatever it is they did, his amphetamines. I don't know what he does.
Well,
whatever that makes him him.
Well, and they did this, and then the newspaper headlines were all the same, which was unifier, healing the country. It's like, where the hell did you get this from?
Well, you were being kind in what you're saying there, because that wasn't all that I said in that post. Leave out the 4-letter words. But I mean, no, but I mean, this was a moment for me, sort of, I don't know, I should have had it sooner. And I'm sure plenty of other people did, of clarity. Look, I've been, a part of the mainstream media, you could say. I wrote a column for the Daily Beast for a while, a political column. I wrote a political column that was a syndicated one that ended up in newspapers across the country, the San Francisco Chronicle, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, the Miami Herald, places like that. And I got, used to go on MSNBC a lot more. I still go on Lawrence here and there, which is the one I respect the most, but that's a different conversation. But essentially what I said about the newspapers, and all of them are, I've gotten past now. So there are people who say, oh, well, the media, they really, they don't get it. They haven't learned anything. And that's always bothered me, because of course they get it. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
All right. These are intelligent people. So that gets me angry. They know what they're doing. But I always thought they were doing it, because they felt they need to both sides it, right? Because they're wimps, because they don't understand, the fact that what a real journalist does. And they think that they were taught that a real journalist is a stenographer who takes both sides and they're equal, and you're really not doing anybody a service if the two sides are different, and one side, let's say, denies the results of the last election and is saying they'll do that again, and has been accused and convicted of, in a civil court, of rape, and a regular court of 34 felonies, is tied to Project 2025, which you really should all read. If you like The Handmaid's Tale, you'll love that. And that they should cover all this. But I've moved on now. I no longer believe it's about both sides. There may be a couple of them like that. I don't want to ever say everybody. I've now moved to, they actively want Donald Trump to win.
Yeah.
I think I'm not a conspiracy theorist, as I said in there. I'm a realist theorist. And there's only so much evidence you can look at the disparate treatment between the two of them. If they were both siding it, then they would, after that horrific speech last night, they would have gone after Trump as hard as they went after Biden after his horrific debate performance. Worse, because at least Biden didn't lie. He just had a bad performance. Trump lied about everything and had a terrible performance, and was ridiculous. But they didn't. They all said he was great and whatever. And the only, I'm sorry, that logical conclusion, the only logical conclusion I'm left to sort of end up at is that they're in the tank. And I'm not saying every one of them. I've made sure to point out the Philadelphia Inquirer called for Trump to get out of the race after the debate, not Biden. Everybody should subscribe there. The Cleveland Plain Dealer has made it clear they're going to cover Trump as he is. They're not going to lie for him. So there's another one. But the Washington Post, New York Times, if you're subscribed, unsubscribe. It's garbage. They're lying to you. They clearly want somebody to win, because Maggie Haberman can't get those big book deals without Trump as president, and they can't get all the access journalism that they want, and they can't get all the clicks, all the stories about him doing crazy stuff, and get all the ad revenue. And I really think that's all it's about anymore. I don't think there's an ounce of patriotism in most of them. I think it's about money. And again, I made sure to give you two good ones, because I never will say they're all the same. And I said Lawrence was a positive one on MSNBC, even though I've now found most of them even to be horrendous. But it just seems like it's bread and circuses. They are ready to just sort of say, all right, look at, our revenue's way down since Biden's been in office. It was through the roof when we had the adversarial, Trump in there, and he would say crazy stuff. And I think they want him to win. And they're tilting the scales in his favor, because the coverage of that thing last night is ridiculous. It's not related to the event the rest of us watched. And those of us who write speeches, there are a bunch of political consultants. I'm sure you read plenty of them on Twitter. Stuart Stevens was one who wrote ads and speeches for Republicans, in the past, and has broken away from the party, whatever. And everybody was like, this is the worst speech I've ever seen, ever. Like, I've never seen something that bad.
Well, and it was the entire night. The Hulk Hogan introduction. There was a point where, and I think it was Huffington Post covered it, and their coverage is spotty. Raw Story is pretty good. There are a few others out there, but very few. Star Tribune and the Pioneer Press here in Minneapolis are garbage. But when the thing
Same
which
with the Inquirer here,
it's
utter garbage, and I would tell nobody to waste their time with it.
Well, and here you have a idiocracy level of introduction.
I'm sorry, I just want to be very clear. That's the Cincinnati Inquirer with an E here, because the Philadelphia Inquirer with an I is one of the ones I pointed out has been leading the pack and is excellent. and I'm subscribed. You all should.
All right.
I just want to be clear. Go ahead.
Thanks for that. But well, the people have pointed out there was no W. There is Mitt Romney is not there. None of these guys that have been the bellwether. This is your traditional convention. You bring out your seasoned, your previous presidents, your previous candidates. That's part of the whole thing. That wasn't what it was. It was just basically Trump. And if at any point you were against Trump, you basically had to come in there and bow down and pledge allegiance to Trump, and that was it. That's the entire thing.
You have to be as much of a sycophant as J.D. Vance, who called him America's Hitler, then became, as well as Marco Rubio, who called him a con man, and all these guys that then spent years sucking up to him because they're clearly traitors and don't care about our Constitution and democracy being overthrown as long as they get power. The ones who won't do that, as you mentioned, I don't love Mitt Romney. I think his positions are wrong.
Yeah.
But at least on democracy, he's willing to stand up for what's right. And you're right. I mean, it is. Somebody wrote a story. I'm trying to remember. It was a New Republic or somewhere like MAGA has erased all history, essentially. Like George W. Bush, forget that he wasn't there. I don't think his name was mentioned. It's like he never existed, And geez, this is one of the most right-wing presidents in U.S. history. But he was pro-immigration reform, and he told people to not. After 9/11, that Islam is a religion based on peace, and that these were people that were the right-wing loony outliers, and to not blame every Muslim you come across. And he believed in international trade and a few things. So he's been cast aside. He's gone. And Mitt Romney, you mentioned. I mean, obviously we know if John McCain were alive, he wouldn't have been there.
No.
Essentially, you'd have no. I mean. I don't know. Is Pat Buchanan still alive? I'm surprised they didn't drag his old carcass out there so he could start. He could reminisce about his time as a prison camp guard in Germany or something. I don't know. I mean,
Nikki Haley. I mean, who only a few months ago was like, "I'm sorry, I've got to run because this guy's bad," and. Basically, as someone described her.
But didn't we all say at the time? We all predicted it. Go back and look at the tape. I'm like, she'll endorse him.
Yep. Hot to it. That's what she was. She basically, the fact that she crumbled and cowered. I mean, it is sad to see the absolute spineless nature of the Republican Party today.
Well, it's pathetic, too, because I think, look, if this guy, and I'm not saying I wish for anything, I'm talking about actuarial charts. He's older. I know we've only ever heard that Biden's old. This guy's like 3 years younger and about 450 pounds heavier and has the beginnings of heart disease, which was shown when when they showed his when Ronnie Pill Popper there was like, he looks great. He's gonna live till he's 200. In any case, so I mean,
I'll tell you what. Why don't you finish that? We'll let you finish that thought up when we come on back from the break. Cliff Schecter joining us. Cliff's Edge is on YouTube. That's where you need to go and subscribe and get more of Cliff. We'll take a break. Come back. It's the Matt McNeil Show. The breakers roar. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Cliff Schecter kind enough to join us here today. And Cliff, we're going to get back to your point there you're making about the people acquiescing to Trump at the RNC. I mean, obviously, no one wants Donald Trump to get shot or assassinated. That was horrible what happened.
No,
and he
wasn't getting to that.
Yeah, and we were getting, and he had an opportunity here. This is where I was scared at the first 17 minutes of that, because all of a sudden this looked like a very different Donald Trump, who was looking indeed saying a kind of a retrospective. I'm like, okay, this is a new thing. And if this is who he's going to be, this could be trouble for the Democrats. But then once again, he becomes who he is. The reality is this is who he's always going to be. He's not going to become anything different. And the fact that every one of these Republicans that went there to pay him tribute, it was pathetic.
Yes, they're all pathetic. I don't know how any of them look in the mirror. I don't know if they live with themselves. I don't know how they aren't disgusted with themselves. I don't know how they have any friends left among those that used to respect them. The point I was trying to make wasn't a morbid one in terms of Trump. I just was saying with actuarial charts and the shape that he's in, he may be gone within 4 years. But if he's still around, all these people like Nikki Haley and whatever throwing themselves in front of him, I don't understand it, because they obviously very badly want to be president. Do they think he's going to endorse them? Of course he's not.
No.
I mean, if there is an election, if we are something that's still a democracy, he'll either endorse J.D. Vance, or if he's angry at J.D. Vance by then and, sent his people to try to hang him too, I guess, he'll pick somebody else probably who reminds him of himself. But he's not picking Nikki Haley, and he's not. So it's even more pathetic that these people do this kind of, like, what is it that she thinks she gets out of this?
Mm-hmm.
Does she think she remains viable in this party? Because again, once Trump's gone, maybe there's a massive change in the direction of the party. Who the hell knows? But you stand up with honor, you do what you believe in, and then you let the chips fall where they may. But not these toadies. They're pathetic. So.
I'm going to be taking vacation time after this. I'm going to take some time off because I need it. Because I don't know why the next phrase for Democrats is so hard. But right now, here it is. Once again, Joe Biden's the nominee. I'm voting for Joe Biden. If he's not the nominee, I'll vote for whoever it is. But until that point happens, I'm voting for Joe Biden. I don't know why this is so hard, but my God, I mean, it is. This election should be an easy layup, and Democrats have a tendency of, once again, not only missing the easy layup, but breaking their leg and killing two people in the stands with the basketball when they try to take the shot. And we are in that process right now, and it is, the last 3 weeks have been just a freaking delight, man. Dear Lord.
I mean, you'd have to have 2 hours here for me to go through this series of self-owns over the last 30 years. I mean, there is a reason why they've been able to block our legislation with a filibuster that doesn't exist anywhere in the Constitution. It's an accident of history. There's a reason why they've lost the vast majority of elections. Barely won. They won the popular vote in one of them. Yet they've been able to stuff the Supreme Court with corrupt Republicans in robes who don't believe in our Constitution. And some of whom are actually outright seditionists, two of whom I can think of, Thomas and Alito. It's because they will do anything to cheat and will always want to be the reasonable guys. Mm-hmm. Say, okay, it's okay, and you can be both. And this is what's always angered me, and I've never just gotten, is you can be somebody who's willing to work with them when they're willing to work with you on something like an infrastructure bill, if it's good for your people, and it was. And yet still realize that you go after them and destroy them for the evil people that they are. And again, where instead of concentrating fire on that large, galoop that was on stage, that mook on stage last night, I mean, instead of that a guy that walked up to a helmet and kissed it, I mean, I don't have enough getting into how weird he is beyond everything else. The way he grabs and almost looks like he's trying to molest the American flag whenever it's nearby. I mean, the beating this guy should be the easiest layup in the world. And I will say, like you, Joe Biden's the nominee. I am excited to vote for him. Mm-hmm. But I will also say, if something changes and it becomes Kamala Harris, I'll be excited to vote for her. And if something happens and somehow it's somebody else, which I hope it doesn't, because it'll mean we'll have done this stupid thing you're talking about where they open up the convention. Then I will vote for, I'll vote for a canned ham. I'll vote for the light up there. I'll vote for the chair I'm sitting on. There's a fox in our backyard that's actually been eating squirrels. I'd vote for that over Donald Trump. I mean, give me anything, right? Yeah. I mean, Epicac. I'll vote for Epicac over him. I don't know. Just give me random stuff like that, and I'll tell you I would. So I don't. It just feels like it's part and parcel to the social media age, where so many people are way too online. And yeah, I'm online a lot, but I take my breaks from it to not let it turn me into one of these people, where we just, the recriminations, we attack each other for the smallest things. And some of that is completely Putin and bot manipulated by the right and by foreign actors. But come on, folks, again, some people may want Biden to drop out right now and may think that Kamala gives us a better chance. I think Biden gives us the best chance. And he's the nominee right now, so that's who I'm supporting. Mm-hmm. But whatever it is that it ends up being, it should be the easiest decision in the world that we all unite that moment behind whoever it is and get the hell out there. Because again, stop being emotional about, we got screwed. Biden got screwed, or Kamala got screwed, or whatever. We all got screwed, right? Roe versus Wade was overturned. The Chevron decision was overturned. We got Supreme Court justices now who are acting like they're scientists. The Voting Rights Act was overturned, and we can't get it passed in Congress again. But it's the Supreme Court. They turned guns into an individual right, something that said well-regulated militia. They're coming after birth control, folks. They're coming after in vitro fertilization. The Alabama Supreme Court already has. Read Project 2025. Listen to J.D. Vance talk. He's given literally the exact same justification for his beliefs. I'm not kidding. This is not an exaggeration. The beliefs that create Gilead, if you've either read or watched The Handmaid's Tale, is based upon birth rates going down. So they decide that women who have been too promiscuous, women who have been gender traitors, who are lesbians, people like that, have caused a lot of this harm, and they are going to become what's akin to slaves to give us children because they can still do that. The way he's talked about it, so the women's complete worth is derived from how many babies can they produce, can they be a good mother? Nothing else. They're not allowed to do anything else, and they've got no other role in society. Have you heard the stuff J.D. Vance has said? That we're in trouble with birth rates because women are spending 80 hours working and thinking that's fulfilling when they should be at home. I mean, he said these things. That literally, I mean, I'm not exaggerating. That this is the crazy right-wing theocratic Sons of Jacob group in The Handmaid's Tale. This was their theory. And J.D. Vance shares their theory of what our birth rate decline is about.
Well, and
it's insane.
And the media is so failing because they describe this concentration camps, mass deportations, women's rights non-existent as look at those plucky scamps, and you're like, what are you freaking doing? This is, you know, people have to stop buying the Republican talking points on this. They just have to.
I'll just say, I don't know if I don't have a minute, I won't say. You tell me.
Oh, we don't have a minute. We got to get it. But here's the deal. You want more of this?
Another time.
Yes, you want more of this. Cliff Schecter's YouTube page, Cliff's Edge. Not only does it have great content, there's now a membership button. Click on the membership button, become a member. You'll get more Cliff, and that will just make your day better, and you will be smarter with that. Cliff, my friend, thank you very much. I appreciate the time today.
Thanks, buddy. Enjoy the time off.
Yeah, I will. Cliff Schecter, once again, Dr. Taiyon Coleman, Traveling Without Moving, that book. We'll talk about that when we come back. It is The Matt McNeil Show. Broadcasting in the evenings on WCPT 820 Chicago's Progressive Talk, and in the afternoons here on AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. It is the Matt McNeil Show. Dr. Taiyon Coleman is a poet, writer, and educator whose work has been anthologized widely. A Cave Canem and Vana Fellow. She is a 2017 recipient of the McKnight Foundation Artist Fellowship in Creative Prose and is one of 12 emerging children's writers of color selected as a recipient of the 2018-2019 Mirrors and Windows Fellowship funded by the Loft Literary Center and the Jerome Foundation in Minnesota. She is an associate professor of English and Women's Studies at St. Catherine's University in St. Paul. She has her first book. It is Traveling Without Moving, Essays from a Black Woman Trying to Survive in America. Dr. Taiyon Coleman is kind enough to join us to talk about this. Doctor, thank you very much. I really appreciate the time today.
Well, thank you for having me, and please call me Ty.
No problem, Ty. Thank you very much. Ty, first of all, I want to say congratulations, because I always like when I get an author who is out there. You've been part of anthologies, but this is your first book. Big round of applause. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you. And I just want to say, you know, for a while, when my kids and I are in the car, we listen to you. Oh. And I love your humor. So thank you for making me laugh, but also educate me. So everybody in the house got a kick out of it when I was like, guess who Mama's going to talk to?
Well, thank you very much. That is an absolute honor. I'm now I am blushing. Oh, well, congratulations on this. Let's start there. What prompted you to say, you know what, I've got essays here I want to write. Let's put them, maybe we can make a full book out of this.
Well, you know, first, if you read the book, when I was 8 years old, I was doomed because I realized I was a writer. But then, you know, my life has not been a straight line, right? It's been all kind of squigglies, dropping out of school for 5 years, never being the traditional person that's supposed to show up. I was having all these experiences, and I thought, you know what? Maybe if I put them together, maybe there might be something there, but also, too, maybe it might be there to help other people. And I think, in a sense, it's the writer and the teacher in me, right? This notion that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And then maybe by surviving that, you use that to teach other people. And also in this belief that we're not alone, that sometimes when we're having these experiences that we think are strange or difficult for us, or we're doubting ourselves, sometimes if we just talk to other people to be like, oh, I had that same experience or something similar. And my hope, I know it sounds, cookie sometimes, but I think that that's how we build compassion and empathy. So even in these kind of terrible times, we can figure out a way to still be connected. That's my hope.
Well, you don't candy coat it.
No.
That's you don't. You are very, yeah. This is a book. Now, once again, I am a white guy. And so for me, it is something. One of the things I've tried to do is I've tried to understand, try to figure out what the world looks like through other people's eyes. This book does that. And it's unapologetic, and it's unpleasant at times, and it's somewhat dark at times, but it also is very real, and it doesn't pull any punches. And the reality is this is the kind of literature we need more of, because you can't solve problems unless they're there. And there are these ignorances that happen within our society, that things are being solved. And the reality is that we try to solve things, but there is so much pushback on trying to solve these things, even after we pass a bill or try to make a law, that it almost makes it impossible to make steps forward.
Yeah, and like you were saying too, like sometimes then we become our own worst enemy, right? In your earlier segment, like why are we doing things that clearly are making it harder for ourselves? But I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I was I was raised by a single mom, one of five, and she didn't have the luxury of sugarcoating stuff, right? Like it was, plain and simple. And although I've been in Minnesota, for over 25 years, when I first came here in 1998 to go to graduate school, that kind of made it difficult for me. Sometimes things aren't straightforward. So I kind of feel like, good or bad, I don't know any other way to be. And kind of like you, I try to code it with a little humor too, because those things that are dark, sometimes those things are painful. Also, we can find the most humor in too, right? Like,
let's talk about your upbringing a little bit in Chicago here, because I was reading. I've not read the whole book. I've read good portions of it, and the way that you kind of try to talk. You talk about your mother. You talk about trying to find out about the relationship and her relationship and stuff like this. And these are for the age you were at when this was going on. These are hard conversations that you had to navigate.
Yeah. Can you imagine being 8, 9 years old and you're at home, and me and my sister, it was my job to watch, the 3 kids underneath us. And it didn't mean that my mother didn't love us. Like these were the only options available to her. Right. But this is, 70s and the 80s, right? Like, hold on, get a seatbelt.
Yeah.
It didn't exist. And that was my experience. I understood that she was doing the best she could. Now I look back at it and think, wow, I would never do that to my kids. But of course, now I have the privilege, right, that she afforded me through her sacrifice, that I didn't have to do that for my kids. But there are still people, you know this clearly as you and I are talking, that are still having to do that for their kids or confronting those types of choices and decisions. So in a sense, yeah, growing up in Chicago, was hard and challenging, but I also got a lot of gifts, right? I didn't know it at the time. I just thought, hey, this is what it is. But my mom, sacrificed for us for our education, clearly told us every single day, if you get your education, this is one of the things that you can use to maybe not have this experience and live a better life. And I know it doesn't always work for everybody, but for me and my siblings, it did. So, that's what, among many things, growing up in Chicago, taught me. And my mother had a really kind of unique experience, because although I'm 2 generations removed from the South via Mississippi and Arkansas, my mother grew up in a small coal mining town in Southern Illinois. Of course, they no longer, coal was not what it used to be, but her experience was very different. So not only was she a single parent, she came from a town of 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. And being by herself, and what did that mean to be a woman and to be a Black woman. And unfortunately, several or many Black women, by age 49, she was dead prematurely. So yeah, these are the stories, these are the legacies, and Chicago is a big part of that. But of course now, being in Minneapolis and Minnesota for 2 decades and having 3 beautiful children, I live here in South Minneapolis with my husband of 23 years. Minneapolis is also a part of that story, but of course I'm not alone, right? Think of all the people who are in Minneapolis from Chicago and other places, right? It seems that we all just continue moving.
You mentioned something earlier, and it's something that it dawned on me because I remember talking to the Penn Center down in South Carolina about this a little bit, and the idea that one of the great disconnects between the white culture and black culture is something you said, is that you appreciate the sacrifice. You understand the sacrifices made so that you can make your life better. And I think in the white culture, there's way too much feeling of entitlement. And there isn't an appreciation or an understanding of the sacrifices that people have made to get to the person where they're at. And, I think that there's a cultural thing, and trying to understand the black experience, the black woman experience as well. I think that people, as you just described your mom's upbringing, the shoulders that people had to stand on to get a generation to where it is, the black community appreciates that a heck of a lot more than I think the white community does.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. In the subtitle, I was very specific about saying from a black woman, right? Because I can only speak for Ty, right?
Yep.
So no identity is a monolith, but I also want to hold space that, I've had the honor and privilege of teaching at 3 major institutions in Minnesota. I apologize to you. My bio has changed. I'm no longer associate professor at St. Kate's. I'm 3 weeks into a dean position at North Hennepin Community College as liberal arts, dean of liberal arts and academic foundation. But I have to tell you, teaching at Minneapolis Community College and teaching at North Hennepin, and I started my career when I first came here early in 2002 at North Hennepin. It was my first real teaching job, and it was a fabulous time. I have to tell you, noticing the constructed identities and the intersection of geography and class and space, right, and all these other identities, I hold that not only are people of color having marginalized experiences, but I want to say that people who are constructed white are having those similar experiences, but because we get obscured by these identities, we don't talk about it. And I've had the honor and privilege of having students where, because of our assumptions about race, you would think that they are not struggling or having those experiences, but in fact they are. And I'm not saying, that it's equal, right? Because it's not about that. No one has a monopoly on pain and suffering. But my hope in doing the work that I do, right, not only as an educator, but as a writer, to not only tell these stories, but also kind of pull back of the curtain to reveal, in some sense, we are all suffering. We just have to figure out a way to see it. And I would say, teaching for over 2 decades, I've seen those stories, not just from people of color, but also from students or people that you would think are constructed as white. And I hope eventually we find a way to get beyond race so that we can really address and to talk about those issues, because they're very real. And I say that from a mom who was from a small town in Southern Illinois that is racially mixed, having a great-great-grandmother who was German, right? Mm-hmm. And these kind of intersecting experiences around race and identity that we don't tend to think about because we get so stuck in the binaries. And again, I want to hold space because I don't want people to criticize me. They are real, but also we have to acknowledge it's a construction that I think obscures the pain and suffering of all people, no matter how you show up.
And forgive me if it came across as being painting with a white brush. I think it is one of the
things.
Oh,
no, not at all.
No, yeah. And I think there's one of those things where these false notions, these ideals that get put on us by society, they definitely do cause, because there isn't an equal thing. And like you said, you can only talk about your personal experience. And for me, I mean, there is an awakening element of it for sure in my life. Like, wow, no, have I missed a lot? And I need to catch up on some things there. But I mean, but there's a tendency, I think, to wrap yourself, even when you can relate, even when your circumstances are more relatable and more understandable, and you can kind of get this, that we wrap ourselves in these false notions, and we fail to see what the world is around us.
Yeah, and also, too, Matt, not to mention, you might not even see yourself, right? You might be going through an experience, you've had the experience, but because you're just so focused on surviving and just getting through, you haven't had the space or the time, the privilege, right, to step back and say, wow, what are these other dynamics that impacted my experience that I couldn't necessarily see in the moment? So I even want to hold space, and I hope this comes through in the writing, and I do, and I want to say I honor and respect it, but I think it's also humorous. We might not even know what's going on ourselves. And I would say sometimes that's one of the reasons why I write. Like, I had this thing happen to me. I don't really understand it. And maybe through the writing, we can learn something about ourselves and about that experience that we didn't necessarily know at the time, which, of course, the big man upstairs is laughing at us, seems to be the tragic irony of life. You know?
You mentioned teaching multiple times here. You got a chapter in the book, The Dangers of Teaching While Black. Just briefly talk a little bit about that. I mean, obviously, I want people to go get the book. So just as much as you want to share from the book as you talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. Like when I first took composition as a freshman, didn't know what the hell was going on. Got a big, fat, juicy F, which I say was for fabulous. If you would have told me I was going to be a writing teacher, I was like, no, are you saying, right? And I write about inequitable experiences that I had as a student of color, first generation. I'm a proud product of TRIO, a Ronald McNeil scholar. And I would say they were real experiences, but they were quite stereotypical, right, by teachers who were constructed as white. And then lo and behold, years pass, and then I perpetuate a similar experience onto my students. And the research is very clear, right? And again, I'm not excusing racism, but if you study implicit bias from teachers, both teachers of color and white teachers have the same level of implicit bias. Now, whether or not they impact the students the same, that's different. We can have this long, boring discussion about disparities. But I myself then reenact that same type of violence, right? And that's a deep moment to kind of stand back and go, whoa. So what is it that we don't understand about power and privilege that's beyond our skin color? And most importantly, what do we not understand about power and privilege that's beyond our identities? And that is very humbling, right? That we can do that. And I would argue that maybe it's the structure. We get so caught up in the structure and we ignore this cumulative compounding impact of that we ourselves, even when we have the best of intentions, we're meaning to do a good job. The outcome still can go wrong, can still hurt people. And I felt like it was a way to kind of honor that, to be in conversation with my other practitioners, because teaching is a hard job. I don't think teachers get enough love. They don't get enough pay. And it's a way to say, not to be okay with mistakes, right? But that we make mistakes. You can say, I'm sorry. And how do we move forward and think about that? And I think if we can do that.
And Doctor, I'm going to have to step in. I'm going to step in. We'll take a break. We'll come on back. Dr. Taiyon Coleman joining us, Traveling Without Moving. It's the Matt McNeil Show. It's the Matt McNeil Show in Chicago, Minneapolis, St. Paul. Thanks for joining us today. Dr. Taiyon Coleman is joining us. The book, Traveling Without Moving, Essays from a Black Woman Trying to Survive in America. And Ty, you were mentioning before, you were talking about the education in this and the lessons that you learned yourself when exposed to the system that's in place, that the realizations that you had come to as a teacher yourself.
Right, because I want to be this cool, Black woman, like, yeah, I'm from Southside Chicago. I had this experience, and my students were like, no, I don't think so, right? And it was like an inability to see myself, right? I had changed, and even if we were from the same place, even if we looked the same, it doesn't mean that we had the same experiences, right? And kind of humbling myself to that, and thinking about, as it applies to writing and literature, right? Because these are my fields, right? I can only speak from the subject position that I have, and I'm very passionate about that. And I do think that writing is probably one of the most intimate things that we can engage in when people express themselves. And think of it, I am a descendant of people in the United States. So far, African Americans were the only people in the history of the United States where it was literally illegal for us to learn how to read and write, and for us to do that. So in this profession that I naively chose simply because, wow, I can wear Birkenstocks and T-shirts and blue jeans, and somebody will pay me, to teach someone how to read and write, to kind of fully humbling myself and understanding how powerful the field of teaching literature and writing is. And it really is, I think, tied to what personal power, enfranchisement, citizenship. I think everything we hold dear in a democracy to what we say is the key to humanity, right? This sense of critical thinking and reading and writing, how it impacts how we see ourselves and how we act in the world. And when we're teaching and engaging in that pedagogy, being very mindful about our own positions in power and not perpetuating what harm or damage. Because I think a lot of students, oftentimes, if they shut down in writing classes, it can be a sign that they won't successfully matriculate or move through other classes. So for me, that has been something that I've been very passionate about, but again, also humbling myself that even I myself with my power can do that kind of harm. And I imagine we all can if we are not aware of it, right? Yeah. And maybe hopefully how to recognize it how to say I'm sorry, how to ask for help, and then move forward together. Because, after 20 years, I've kind of learned it's not me coming into the classroom, teaching from a hill on high. It really is the students teaching me and me teaching them, and we're teaching each other, and we're working together. So that's what that essay is about. And of course, thrown in with a little humor.
Well, and I also do want to make
well,
sure.
I hope that people find it funny.
Well, I find the book wonderful.
So thank you. It is an honor and pleasure coming from you. I feel like I'm not trying to be sad here. It was on the bucket list of what are the things I want to do, and this was on that list. And I never could have imagined it happened this way. So the only thing I can just say thank you, and I hope it has some utility for people who read it. And I totally understand you can't control what a thing is once you put it out in the world. I'm just honored that people are giving it a chance. And again, like I said, I hope it works to serve and help people in any way that they see it has value.
I highly encourage, get the book. What's Understood Don't Need to Be Explained is an exceptional chapter there in that book. It's if you're like me, you want to be a better person, you want to understand the world better. Once again, you're coming directly from Ty here, but as well, you're going to get a better understanding of life experiences, and that makes us better people. So this is a highly, highly recommended book for myself for you to go get, and please do get it and do read it. Traveling Without Moving, Essays from a Black Woman Trying to Survive in America, Dr. Taiyon Coleman. Once again, Ty, an absolute privilege. Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time today.
Thank you, too, and I hope that you should know, I remember the story you told once about that you wanted to be a comedian, right?
Yeah.
And you decided not to because of your family, and that always struck me, because I always tell my students that, you don't think I could be a comedian? I think I could make it work. And then it's like deadpan silence. Don't quit your day job.
Watch me tell a joke to my kids, and there is no more humbling experience. And when I'm there saying, "But that's a good joke," it's already gone. I've already lost. I'm already done. You find your lane and you stay in it. That's not about
okay, good. Well, I'm not as funny as you, but I was like, finally, a kindred heart, someone who wanted to be a comedian, but we had to do something else.
Yeah, that's what we had to do other things. Ty, anytime you want to come back, you have an open invite to my show. Thank you so very much for the time today.
Thank you. It was an honor and privilege. Peace.
Please, thank you.
Right.
From the University of Minnesota Press, by the way, I want to make sure I mention that as well. It's Dr. Taiyon Coleman, Essays from a Black Woman Trying to Save in America, Traveling Without Moving. Get the book. There he goes. I'm here watching on the screen. There you go. There it is. I'll put links to everything coming up here in a little bit. Real quickly here before I want to get to the end of the hour here for Chicago. And Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on Friday said she has not seen a bulletproof case to support the notion that Joe Biden should drop out of the presidential race, warning that many of those calling for him to end his reelection bid are not interested in having Vice President Kamala Harris replace him on the ticket. The 81-year-old president's poor performance in one single debate in June, fueled concerns about his age and fitness to serve, with a growing number of Democrats now calling him to step aside and support an alternate candidate. Speaking on Instagram after the conclusion of Donald Trump's speech at the GOP convention, she said she is not convinced that Biden should leave the race. I have not seen the fully laid out bulletproof data case here. There's no consensus on an alternative to Biden, adding that many people who have called for his exit are not looking for Harris to take over. And this is where I want to just take a quick moment and say, I think if it's the donors who are doing this, you have to make sure you're asking yourself the question, if the donors giving $1 million to the Democrats, how many millions of dollars are they giving to the Republicans? Because once again, this election's in 3.5 months. This election is in 3.5 freaking months. The only person that can take over Joe Biden's war chest of campaign funds is Kamala Harris. If you're sitting there and thinking to yourself, you're going to somehow find some way for some other candidate to compete with the juggernaut money machine that is the RNC right now from scratch in 3.5 months, you're a fool. This comment makes me think a lot of people need to really stop and just think about what they're doing. Chicago, I'll talk to you in a week and a half. Minneapolis, St. Paul, Hour 2 up next. Hour number 2 of the show here on your Friday. Matt and Brett here today. And as I kind of mentioned there at the end of the hour, I'm going to be taking some time off. I need some time off, dude, man. I need some freaking time off. Yeah, we've got for you over the next week and a half after this just a humdinger of a lineup of folks that are going to be filling in. Greg Bakken is going to fill in, I believe, a few days, correct?
That is correct. He's doing, a couple of them.
Are you doing any shows?
I'll be doing the one on Tuesday coming up.
Are you going to be doing the one on Tuesday? JP Derbogogian is going to be joining us and filling in for me on multiple shows. Nancy Nelson is going to fill in. I think she's in on Monday, correct?
She's doing both the Mondays you're gone.
Nancy will be here on Monday. And considering how my timeline blew up the last time we had her fill in for me, I expect the same thing. You make sure, I want everyone to call Nance on Monday and tell her how much you love her. She is a freaking national treasure. I love that woman. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful to all the people that are going to fill in. Thank you very much. I am going to be taking some time off. I'll be on assignment. I will be back in studio on August 1st. So until that time, thank you very much. So I'm Brett, I don't want to necessarily make enemies out of the Maurer fans, but I'm going to do it again because I already know there's no way I can get out of this without basically upsetting them, but I'm going to say it. So Joe Maurer, they got the Hall of Fame weekend, right? Is it this weekend at Cooperstown?
I believe so, yeah.
I don't know. We don't have Bally Sports doesn't have the Twins games, and for some reason those idiots don't have a game today. So I don't understand. They're missing a lot here. But hey, yeah, sure. Replay another Lynx game, I guess.
Speaking of extended vacations, the Twins, 5 days.
Thank you for that, Twins fans. That's paying back the fans. Anyway, and by the way, can one of you guys call up the freaking Bally Sportsnet and tell those idiots to get back on all these networks? Anyway. God, whatever. In this day and age, freaking Apple TV's got sports on it, which I can't watch. But I've got a cable system I can't watch because Bally seems to be the worst run sports network in the history of television. At least that's what it is. But hey, thanks from the fans. Thank you. Dear Lord. Anyway, so Maurer's going in this weekend in the Hall of Fame. Now, multiple people have acted as if he was a unanimous decision. He wasn't. How many votes was it? 5 votes over that he got over the minimal bar that he got in?
Not sure, to be honest, on his margin, yeah.
I said he was going to be, I thought he was going to be 10 to 20 votes short. And I was pretty damn close, thank you very much. But he ended up, going over the top. And, and so fine. He's in the Hall of Fame. It's, the way it's portrayed is that it is, once again, was a unanimous choice. No one could, he barely got in, but he got it. I mean, he barely got in. And I was on the negative side of that. And the thing I always said was, I didn't think he'd get in on the first ballot, but he'd clearly get in afterwards because he'd be so close, eventually they'd come around to it. We remember this, right? I remember this and the angry phone calls from Twins fans, right?
This isn't the first year he was eligible, was it?
Yes, it was.
Oh, it was? Okay, so he was a first ballot. Yeah, barely, though.
Barely. But that's where I thought it was going to be. Anyway, so people are starting to put out tributes to Joe Maurer. Now, first of all, Star Tribune put out a tribute of where every hit went. And the first thing, I saw the headline on that, and I said, you sure you guys want to do that? Because he wasn't exactly a power hitter.
Yeah, they all just bloop singles to left field.
It was a lot of them. There was a lot of singles and doubles. There wasn't a lot of hits.
Plays too.
Not a lot of hits to the outfield, over the fence. Were some. The one year he had 28 homers, but that was the one. And the rest of them, I said, okay, I don't think that this hit spray pattern is necessarily the selling thing you want to do. Don't get me wrong. The guy got a lot of hits, singles and doubles. He got a lot of those. But, I mean, his lack of power is highlighted dramatically in that thing. So I thought that was, if you're trying to solidify his position, I don't know if that's necessarily the graphic you want to use. But the one thing that really kind of like, okay, what are you guys doing? They played a video clip of his best plays fielding. The guy, when he was a catcher, was phenomenal. One of the best catchers fielding-wise ever. He had 2 or 3 seasons there where it was amazing how good he was at catcher. Making plays very few catchers could make. That's not the question. Remember, my whole thing about him was, but he didn't catch most of his he caught most of his career, but barely. He went and played first base, and he wasn't the best first baseman. And so what happens is this video goes through some of his incredible plays at catcher. Halfway through the video, though, they go to first base. And I don't want to say they try to exaggerate the importance of, catching a ball in foul territory or, the occasional dirt on the uniform because Maurer leaned to the right and made a snag. Great. So they were good plays. They weren't anything like any of the catcher plays. The catcher plays were incredible to watch. You should have put more of the catcher plays in there and not tried to make it seem like his first base. And my God, they had one clip where it was, I think it was Bremer and Blyleven sitting there, and I'll get to Blyleven here in a little bit. Bremer and Blyleven sitting there, and you're talking about, gosh, look at him at first base. If he's not a Gold Glove winner, I said to myself, it's like, did he ever win the Gold Glove at first base? And I went back, and it's like, no, he didn't. As a matter of fact, the last first baseman we had that was a Gold Glover was Doug Minkiewicz, and in 2001. Was it? Did Herbeck never got it? Did he? No, he never did. He was okay.
Herbeck was good, but yeah, he wasn't. Yeah,
he just didn't. He was a big guy. He had a heck of a lot of power. He just wasn't as mobile on the first base. And I think, that's it's a little unfair to Herbeck to compare him to the modern day, kind of first baseman. How about Vic Power? I did not realize that. 63, 64. Vic Power was Golden Glove for first base for the Twins. And then they traded him in the next season. Well, he got traded twice. Went from the Twins to the Angels and then the Angels to the Phillies. So I guess we can count that a little bit. But Vic Power, how about that name from the past?
Did he hit for power?
No.
How can you not hit for power if your last name is Power?
That's a little false advertising. He was 62, 63. And he played for a lot of teams. He was Gold Glove for many years. He played for Cleveland before he went to the Twins. And he got a bunch of them. Anyway, if you're going to sell, and once again, Hall of Fame, he gets his day, plaque, his name's enshrined, it's done. I love baseball. It's an accomplishment. And like I said, I was never of the mindset that he was never going to get into the Hall of Fame. I just didn't think it was going to happen the first time. Stop acting like he got unanimously voted in. He barely got in, but he got in. That being said, his first few years at playing first base, he was one of the worst first basemen in the league. He eventually got to be a mid-tier first baseman. If you want to do a highlight play reel, do it as a catcher. He was so freaking good as a catcher. Don't sit there and try to turn what might be slightly better than routine plays into some sort of all-star caliber signature. It just, God, no. I guess we're stuck with this, though, because this is not going to go away. It's going to be, look at him field that grounder. Look at him field. He fielded that grounder like a pro. God, I can already see it. It's going to be 30 years. 30 years, and they're going to be, it was his bloop single bobblehead. We're going to get that. He's a good player. He was, and correct me if I'm wrong, Brett, did you ever hear me badmouth his catching? I mean, his knees went out. I mean, you have to talk about the health of the body, but the fact he got to major leagues and he still had knees is amazing.
Yeah, I don't really recall anything. I don't recall anyone really making negative comments about his catching ability.
Nope. I'm absolutely, and at one point, one of the greatest catchers ever. Absolutely. But, yeah, It's like trying to say, here's your fielding, best of fielding for when you were a DH. It's going to be a sparse list of things you got on that list. Oh, enjoy it, Joe. Enjoy it. You will always have a fan base with that team because they didn't make a Twins fans who like Joe Mauer. They made Joe Mauer fans who like the Twins. And it was a bit of a marketing mistake, but my guess is you'll never have to buy a drink in this town again. Or maybe he does. I don't know. I don't know does he drink? Do we know if he drinks? I don't know.
I don't know. I know he did those ads for milk back in the day.
He did milk. Yeah, you're never going. My guess is you're never going to have to pay for a glass of milk again. There you go. Let's talk about the story that has been covering a lot of things today, and that's the cyber outage caused by overnight software update created chaos for travelers stuck in airports around the globe. Thousands of flights were grounded Friday. The outage disrupted operations at local businesses, hospitals, government services, and even the morning rush hour commute. Widespread outage affecting Microsoft Windows operating system forced the state's driver and vehicle services exam stations to administer written road tests the old-fashioned way with pen and paper. While road tests continued as normal, nobody. Well, did you have to go back to like horse and carriage? We got old Bessie hooked up to the wagon. Now you got to do your road test. Good luck backing up into the parallel parking. By the way, pen and paper. I can only imagine the terror look on most 15 and 16-year-olds going to take that test. Because I'll give my kid like a $20 bill, and they look like I'm, that I've just tried to give a dictionary to an Amazonian tribe. They just like, what's paper money? I didn't know I was in Yield, Yorktown. Shut up. But here you come in. I'm here to take my driver's test. Here's a pen. And then sitting there trying to, how does this work? Good luck with all that. The story of the day has been countless establishments where computers were caught in the blue screen of death. God, I haven't heard that one in a while. Loop, meaning many unavailable to work conduit computers. That was the last time I had blue screen of death was back. I was working at a radio station in Ames, Iowa, and we had some computers in that studio that just we were abusing. We were abusing those computers, and every once in a while, blue screen of death.
I'm hearing blue screen. These guys running Windows 95 on all these computers.
You might want to get that 286 upgraded. There are some newer models on there. Just you'll love the flat screens. I'll let it be a surprise. Anoka County officials said limited stations available for licensed passport centers that process transactions. The biggest impact was at MSP, where more than 140 flights. Oh, I can tell you from people I know that drop off and work over at the airport, it's not been a good day at MSP. They had to cancel. I think it was Sun Country had to cancel all the flights before 7 a.m. They're now saying that this could go through the weekend because they got to get planes into certain areas, and so. Hopefully it's they get this thing cleaned up fairly quickly. Just like with winter storms, if flights are canceled to other parts of the country, they don't make it here, we could see a domino effect. Hennepin County Sheriff's Office said in a statement that the IT staff was working to ensure minimum impact on services, but there had been no disruptions of the 911 calls, thank God. Health care group said Friday morning they were recovering the technology disruption. Patients will be contacted if appointment changes are needed. Okay, here's the thing about this whole thing, which really kind of makes me scratch my noggin a little bit. This apparently was one line of code in this update that basically shut down everything. One line of code shut down everything. In some states, 911 was down. We talk about some of the municipal services that are down. The airports are down. Some airports are having a real big problem. Banks were down. Maybe the problem here is we have a system where one line of code turns us back to the freaking Stone Age. Or the 1950s, pen and paper. I mean, come on. That's what it is. I'm sorry. This seems like a little bit of a unbelievably easily avoidable mistake to just have some level of diversity in the programs that are serving these individual industries. Because if you were to think to yourself, wait a second here, one computer program operates not only the airports and planes, but banks, plus the testing stations at driver's licenses and 911. Well, maybe that's a bad idea, because if terrorists can figure out a way to basically spike the code, it shuts down a lot of needed services real quick. I guarantee you, at the company which did this, that someone was fired today. Somebody got fired today. Absolutely. Well, it might have been late last night, because I think it was right around midnight. The update happened and everything went right down into the crapper. But now this is the concern I have, is how is one line of code able to do this much decimation and damage? And yeah, I think we like to think to ourselves that, all this new technology gives us a diverse idea. The reality is we all are still apparently operating on Windows 97. I'm sure Best Buy's got an update, got a deal on a lot of them. If you want to go get a whole bunch, you can probably get a better deal there. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Let's take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. Joe is in Bloomington, and he works for government IT, and he's kind enough to join us today to explain how one line of code basically wiped out half the industries in this country. Hey, Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate you for holding today.
Yeah, I appreciate you enjoying your show here. It's basically the software is called CrowdStrike, and it's used for security purposes. I don't know if it's used for antivirus days or spam or all the other kind of natures of it, but every night those things usually get updated, or at least once a week they get updated, and of course it's in the middle of the night. It was a bad, dictionary is not the right term, but there was bad stuff in that, so it took the machines down. We went through our area all day today. We still have some of our systems still aren't up 100% yet. So,
all right, and is it just? I mean, isn't it kind of terrifying that one little line of code can cause this much damage?
Yeah, and to me, I'm more angry that this company is, if they got this many customers, there's no reason they're not doing a thorough job of testing everything they do before they send it down to the customers.
Well, that's a very good point. Hey, Joe, thank you very much. I appreciate the phone call there. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Yeah, no, you can't, if you want this much responsibility, then you can't basically do a bad product or a weak product. You just can't. Hey, let's turn our attentions to local politics here in Minnesota. You remember Cal Bahr? Cal Bahr was the guy that was, when he was at a rally that was pro-Second Amendment, talked about throwing people out and stomping on them on the curb outside or something like that. Yeah, he's a real delight. He's just a little buttercup up there, isn't he? Cal Bahr apparently was at a voluntary fundraiser in March in Minnesota. He blamed women for their own unwanted pregnancies. If you're going to party, you got to pay the consequences. Let's hear from Senator Cal Bahr himself.
Is listed in Article 1, Section 8. No abortion, no health care of any kind. They're not supposed to have anything to do with it. So the Supreme Court actually ruled correctly. And it drives Democrats nuts. Because, what do you mean we can't go kill our unwanted babies? Maybe you should have paid attention to that. If you're gonna party, you got to pay the consequences.
Wow, he's horrible. Now, once again, this is Republicans. Remember the Republicans who basically insist now they're open to other talking about abortion. Where did you ever get the idea we're extremists? Well, this dinkus Cal Bahr, who sounds like the worst candy bar of all time. Ugh, white chocolate and raisins. That's actually pretty good. Yeah, that's the Cal Bahr. White chocolate and raisins. And mint. Stop it. So not only does he sit there and he puts forward the insanely glib, insensitive, stupid, moronic talking points that the right likes to put out when they're quiet quarters. It's like, they just want to murder their unwanted babies. Wacky fun from Cal Bahr. I've known multiple people who have had abortions. None of them were happy with having to do this. When you sit there and act as if someone in the second trimester or last trimester is happy and gleeful that they have to get an emergency abortion to save their lives, you're just a callous jackass, Cal. You're just, that's all you are. I mean, you are just a callous jackass to push that narrative. And, I also want to say the whole line about if you're going to party, you got to pay for the consequences. You do understand that unlike that snake in the zoo that somehow just had a bunch of babies, even though it's all by itself in a cage for 14 years, that human beings, there is a term called it takes two to tango. Oh, that's right, Cal. Are you of that mindset that the man doesn't really have any responsibility outside of it? It's just that it's the chickie booze problem? That's it. She wants to party, then you got to pay for the consequences. Chickie poo. Is that what you're doing there, Cal Bahr? Because, you sound like an absolute jackass. And it'd be interesting to find out if there happen to be any healthcare choices that Cal Bahr and his family have had to make in this category. Or were there any ex-girlfriends or anything like that? Because it implies that if you're going to party, a.k.a., I guess, have sex, that, you have to pay for the consequences. Are you saying that you don't believe in contraception? Because sometimes people have contraception, they have no intention of getting pregnant, and then all of a sudden the contraception fails and they get pregnant and they have to get it. But your argument seems to be that I guess that if you're going to party, that there shouldn't be any contraception or that you shouldn't have it. Are you abstinent? Is that what's going on, man? Is this how you got the way you were? It's just you basically sat and is that how? I don't know. I'm just asking. What I'm going to say is this. Maybe, just maybe, and I say this as a Christian, my friend, maybe you shouldn't be a jackass, okay? Because, and by the way, if you want to go the Christian route, Jesus never condemned abortion, never did, even though it was a common practice back then. As a matter of fact, the book of Numbers actually has a process to actually issue an abortion. It's kind of weird. It's a touch and go thing. Anyway, you basically are of the mindset that basically all these people have to have kids, but your political party as well doesn't want them to have any food, medicine, anything like that. If they happen to fall through the cracks of society, and we need some social safety net programs. So you're kind of an idiot. But here's one of the things I'll say about Cal Bahr. Once again, it shows us who they really are. Republicans are out there, especially the metro area Republicans who are trying desperately to run in these House races where they desperately want to pick up the House. They're out there screaming right now, we're reformed when it comes to abortion. No, they're not. No, they're not. They're lying their asses off. They are lying. They will get rid of it the second they can. They will make sure the Republican Party stance right now, we just had the RNC, the Republican Party stance seems to be that it's not going to be any abortion, or there's not going to be any in vitro fertilization, and there's not going to be any exceptions for rape, incest, or the life of the mother, and there isn't going to be any contraception at all either. And so, I'm not, Cal Bahr, no, you're wrong. But at least, hey, thanks for getting recorded so we can see who you really are there. Because you're really a bad person. You're a really bad person. 952 from the mouths of babes. 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on Your Friday. It's the Matt McNeil Show. AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota. I want to go back to something that Schecter was talking about here. We talked about when we first had him on about the newspaper headlines, because he brought up a post, if you can go look there online, that brought up a few different newspapers in their headlines: the Boston Globe, the Dallas Morning News, USA Today Weekend, and then one of the newspapers featured in his post was of the Pioneer Press. And the Pioneer Press's headline of that Trump speech is, "Trump takes a unity tone. Oh, that rapscallion." That's kind of what they said. I actually posted the Star Tribune's headline on their newspaper, "Trump calls for healing." Wow. Now, I don't mean to call out both the newspapers in this town for outright misrepresenting what actually was spoken last night, but they outright misrepresented what was spoken last night. And my gut feeling is they wrote their headlines without watching the actual speech. As a matter of fact, let's break down the speech. Trump's campaign aides have been pushing stories about how Saturday's assassination attempt at the rally in Pennsylvania had made him a more spiritual person and how Trump would offer a unifying message. And at the start, Trump indeed did offer more of a somber tone. There was blood pouring everywhere, but a certain way I felt very protected because I felt I had God on my side. He mentioned a retired fire chief had been killed at the rally and showed his jacket and helmet, which had been brought on the stage. "I'm not supposed to be here tonight," he says. That tone lasted for 17 minutes. Then he called on the state and federal prosecutors to drop all 4 criminal cases against him, including the one in which he was convicted of 34 felony counts in May. Once again, taking his goodwill and his unity to push a personal agenda. The Democrat Party should immediately stop weaponizing the justice system and labeling their political opponent as enemy of democracy. I'm not labeling that. You're doing it. You're Project 2025. You're an enemy of democracy. That's just reality, sir. At the 25-minute mark, so just a mere 8 minutes later, Trump called former Democratic House Speaker Nancy Pelosi crazy. Crazy. Once again, Trump calls for healing, headline of the Star Tribune. Trump takes a unity tone, headline of the Pioneer Press. 25 minutes into the speech, he called Nancy Pelosi crazy. 8 minutes later, he accused Democrats of cheating in elections. 4 minutes later, he insulted the news media, referring to the CBS News program Face the Nation as Deface the Nation. And 38 minutes in, he repeated the lie that he used to incite the January 6, 2021 assault on the Capitol, that the 2020 election had been stolen through him through cheating. Immediately after that, he made liars out of staffers who said he told reporters that he would never mention the name of the man who had defeated him, claiming Biden by name was worse than the previous 10 worst presidents combined. The speech devolved from there. Once again, this is all the things he said. Pioneer Press, Trump takes a unity tone. Star Tribune, Trump calls for healing. Bull crap. Trump's speech devolved from there into Trump's standard off-use rhetoric from his rally speeches, that the economy on his watch was the best ever. Wrong. That his trade agreements were marked improvement over the previous ones. No, he almost destroyed most of our economy with his tariff act. The crime is currently out of control. Actually, it's down dramatically. It's actually below his last year as in the White House. The current crime levels in this country are less than his last year. They've improved. So his repeated promises and warnings with no basis of fact that he'd be able to balance the budget merely by increasing oil and gas production, or that ongoing influx of illegal immigrants would bankrupt Social Security and Medicare, neither of those things are real. Through the entire 92-minute address, once again, 17 minutes was unity. 92 total minutes. Once again, the Pioneer Press's headline, Trump takes a unity tone. Star Tribune, Trump calls for healing. Wow. Through the entire 92-minute address, Trump won sustained adulation from the thousands of delegates, alternates, and guests packed in the home of the Milwaukee Bucks. Though attentions began wandering at the 75th minute as delegates began checking their phones, which is, that's what happens. He starts getting rambly. And that's what he did. He went into his speech rambling. It was a dramatic evolution from his first Republican National Convention 8 years ago. In 2016, a sizable number of Republican activists gathered at the convention in Cleveland to try to take the nomination away from Trump because of the treatment of women, his racism, his history of cheating contractors out of business, his uneven history on abortion, and his open praise of dictators like Vladimir Putin. 8 years later, all of those characteristics remain true, but Trump is now the also twice impeached former president and a court-adjudicated sexual abuser who, according to the trial, is a common parlance. In common parlance, he raped a woman, and he would be autocrat who tried to overturn an election and he lost, and most recently a convicted felon. And it should be reminded, we also have now evidence that he was on those planes with Jeffrey Epstein and underage girls flying to Epstein's sex island. So there's that. Multiple times, too. Multiple times. And yet there wasn't even the whisper of open dissent this week. It was speakers and delegates both instead attacking the police, prosecutors, and judges involved in the criminal and civil cases against their leader. What can I say, said one dispirited Republican National Committee member in a condition of anonymity. Here we are. Former President George W. Bush, former Vice President Dan Quayle, former Republican presidential nominee Mitt Romney are all in good health, but none of them were in place has a place at all in the new Trump party. Also unwelcome are Trump's own former Vice President Mike Pence and many of his top advisors, who instead have warned that Trump's lack of fidelity to the Constitution makes him unfit to hold office. Well, you kind of have a grudge when he sends an angry mob to go try to kill you. Instead, the speaking lineup leading up to Trump's acceptance speech featured conspiracy theorist Tucker Carlson, a professional wrestler, Hulk Hogan, and a self-acknowledged racist, by the way. Hulk Hogan is a self-acknowledged racist, and lawyer Alina Habba, who may be best known as Trump's lawyer. So your three opening acts were Tucker Carlson, Hulk Hogan, and your defense attorney. You can't make it up. He represented Trump in a lawsuit he lost against a woman who said Trump had raped her and repeatedly defamed her by lying about it. The penultimate speaker, though, the one who introduced Trump on stage, was ultimate fighting impersonator Dana White, who's caught on camera physical abuse of his wife in the past would have made his presence impossible, which is the new Republican Party, scarcely warrants a mention. Once again, a guy who's on camera beating his wife was the final speaker before Donald Trump. 8 years, 2 impeachments, 4 indictments, 34 felony convictions, and 1 attempted coup later. The GOP is now fully 100% Trump's party, said Joe Walsh, the one-time Republican congressman from Illinois who broke with Trump early in his presidency. And that speaks less to Trump's strength and much more to Republican fear and cowardice. Absolutely true. So once again, there was nothing unifying about that speech. There was no healing within that speech, or the entire thing. So everybody, right now, I want you to call the Pioneer Press. I want you to call the Star Tribune and ask the Pioneer Press, hey, why is your headline, Trump takes a unity tone? Didn't you hear the speech? Why is your headline, Trump calls for healing? Didn't you hear his speech? Because we got 2 newspapers in this town, and both of them don't seem to have listened to his speech that they then wrote headlines for in their damn newspapers. You wonder how democracies fall. It's because one of the main reasons is news media doesn't do their damn job. And this is, I can't give you a better example of the news media failing spectacularly at doing their job. They didn't even watch the speech, yet they wrote headlines describing the speech as the complete opposite of what it was. That's not on me. Don't get mad at me because I'm this pesky little varmint that lives on the AM radio dial down the street. No, this is on you. This is your standards. This is your reputation. You're the ones that always talk down to radio broadcasters and you simpleton little people. No. You want to put forward this idea of we're this journalistic integrity and we can't be questioned. Well, then what the hell is this, man? Stop. Just stop. If you want to be the freaking Weekly World News, then put Bat Boy on the freaking cover of your newspaper and stop acting like you're some sort of, bellwether of society. I miss the Bat Boy. Oh, man. Weekly World News and Bat Boy coverage was fantastic. When you've gotten to the point where I'm comparing your front page headlines in the Pioneer Press and the Star Tribune to Bat Boy at Weekly World News, that's not my problem, man. That's not on me. That's on you guys. Dear Lord. I mean, come on. How are you this bad at this? I mean, I should not be the one that's calling this stuff out. And at no point did anyone say, whoa, wait, did you hear that stuff about? No, he wasn't unifying. Not at all. I should mention Bert Blyleven. I did mention him earlier. So, speaking of Republicans, and I'm not quite sure what happened with Bert here. But here's the thing I'm going to tell you. Minneapolis, St. Paul, I get it. You do your winter caravan. You go out to rural areas where there's a lot of Republicans, and that's great. Minneapolis, St. Paul, where the Twins are based, where you guys need to get your baseball stadium funded, and it's only a matter of time here, probably a few years before all of a sudden you need to come to the taxpayers for major upgrades. You do that. Minneapolis, St. Paul is a fairly liberal town. And so, I don't know if necessarily embracing a political point of view is a good idea if you are in the sports realm, because it has a tendency of poisoning the water hole. A great example of that is the Twins, who I never really knew that much about the Twins' political points of views, and the Golden Gophers. They both got stadiums, but the red McCombed Vikings for many years were not getting a football stadium because it wasn't the Minnesota Vikings. It was the Minnesota Republican Party Vikings. And they just didn't seem to understand in a state like Minnesota, you're going to need some Democrats signing on to get a stadium built. Ziggy Wilf bought the team, seems to have immediately put down leave politics. You want to be politics in your private life, that's on you, but do not include the Minnesota Vikings in it in any capacity. And voila, we've got the Jaw of Sandcrawler on the east side of the downtown now. You generally don't get into the politics if you're doing this stuff, because it has a tendency in a city which is notoriously liberal of biting you in the caboose. But hey, sure, the guys in Thief River Falls will think you're a hoot. Bert Blyleven apparently doesn't understand what clickbait is. And this is where his problem begins. Something called Save America USA News Zero, which is kind of a theme here, put out a social media post breaking: Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce say they will leave the United States if Donald Trump becomes president in 2024. What is your response? It's called clickbait. Now, I want to stop you for a quick second. Travis Kelce is an NFL football player. The NFL only plays in the United States. So he's not about to go play for the Canadian League or for Germany. He's not. Although he probably would be the best player in the league. I mean, if he did go to any of those leagues. He would basically, he is not going to be going to Japan and playing in a football league there, or Australia. No. He's clearly not leaving the United States as a star player for the Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs football team. He's going to stay here. Taylor Swift seems to be just constantly on tour, so I don't know how much she's here anyway. But who cares? Even if it was true, which it clearly isn't, because only a complete and total moron would look and say Travis Kelce is going to leave the country. But who cares even if it was true? But it's clearly not. It's called clickbait. It's just something to get a reaction, to which Bert Blyleven kindly obliged. And he says, bye! All right. Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce say they'll leave the United States if Donald Trump becomes president in 2024. What's your response? And Bert Blyleven decides to this piece of clickbait is going to be the one. I don't know. Did we know Bert Blyleven was a MAGA guy beforehand? Did you have any knowledge of that?
I did not. No, that's too bad if he is.
Yeah, it's a shame. I hope it was worth getting that that zinger out against the clickbait post, which isn't true in the first place, because only an idiot would think that Travis Kelce is going to move out of the country as an NFL football player. But fine, you got your zinger in there, Bert. You do realize that, okay, and this is the post I made back to him. So, I'm a veteran who flies the flag. I also hate Trump's politics, and it's horrible that he was shot, but his Project 2025 is a threat to his country and democracy. Bert, doing the get off my MAGA lawn in liberal Minneapolis, St. Paul is not a wise move, man. Now, hey, you want to have your opinion? That's fine. The problem here, Bert, is this is not your private. It's you clearly put your twins' presence on your Twitter account. As a matter of fact, your little icon is the number 28, and it sure looks like that's a Twins jersey. Yep, it is. It even has the Twins logo on it. And Major League Baseball's logo on it, so I bet you they're happy with you now, too. Dude, first of all, talk to one of your freaking grandkids or great-grandkids, whatever it is, and understand what clickbait is. And the fact we are getting a lesson on why clickbait exists, because the fact that Bert Blyleven was so quick to, dude, stop. Second of all, if you want to be part of the Twins organization, you want to be a representative of the Twins, that's fine. Read the room, moron. But hey, sure, I'm sure all of a sudden hey, I don't know why the Democrats in the state of Minnesota don't want to give us a massive amount of taxpayer dollars to do upgrades on Target Field. Come on, man. Well, because if you make it political, man, you're not going to get anything built. That's the lesson we learned with the Vikes. 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We'll take a break. Come on back. It's the Matt McNeil Show here on your Friday. The AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show, 952-946-6205. One last thing here I do want to get to, because I've been surprised at how much this post has resonated. So they announced the light rail, the train that now runs St. Paul to Chicago, that in its full first month of service, Amtrak's new daily service between the Twin Cities and Chicago saw 19,000 riders. That is 6 times the original estimate of how many riders are on. This is why they're trying to figure out if they can get another train to come through, is because there clearly is a demand. And I made the point, I don't know if you remember, little Scotty Walker, the former governor of Wisconsin, he basically held that, when he came into office, he shut down any kind of train funding. Initially, this train was going to go to Madison, but it doesn't. It actually goes Wisconsin Dells, Portage, Columbus, then over to Milwaukee. So it goes way north of Madison. And it was originally going to do that, but Scott Walker said, not on my watch, because nobody wants to ride the train. That was his kind of deal, right? And, well, guess what? Now that train's going well, and the city of Madison is completely left out of it. I think they have a bus that you can take from the University of Wisconsin up to, is it Columbus or something like that, to take the train from there. But that's clearly not convenient. I just want to remind people of this, because there are consequences for electing these idiots. And you basically say to yourself, this is clearly a service people wanted and they're willing to pay for. And Scott Walker, because he just doesn't like trains, is the anti-Biden, I guess, basically knocked it down. And because of him, if you are in Madison, Wisconsin, and you are listening to this show, the reason why you don't have a train that runs into Madison from Minneapolis and Chicago is because of Scott Walker. And it's a shame, because that'd be something that'd be beneficial, I think, to the University of Wisconsin and to Madison overall. Instead, not even close. All right, so once again, thank you to Nancy Nelson. Thank you to Greg Bakken. Thank you very much to JP Derabagosian. Thank you to Brett for filling in. I am going to be gone after today's show. I'm back on the 1st of August. I imagine, keep listening, because there's going to be a lot of news that breaks here. I hope you have a nice week and a half. Like I said, back on the 1st of August. Taking us out today, let's go with Beck. It's Dreams. We'll be back. Nancy will be in on Monday. I'll be back on the 1st. Have a good one. Till then, see ya.